In markets around the world, Canada is a respected and reliable supplier of grains, oilseeds, and special crops. This reputation has been built through the efforts of Canadian farmers who've responded to market demand and through a handling and transportation industry dedicated to the efficient movement of crops to market. Canada produces about 54 million tons of grains and oilseeds annually. Of this total, about half is exported, a massive undertaking that sees grain moved over vast distances from farm to port. The journey begins here on the farm. Each year, harvested grain is moved into farm storage bins, where it is protected from the elements and regularly monitored by the farmer to ensure the quality of the grain is maintained. Grain typically remains stored on the farm until market demand for specific varieties and grades provides an opportunity for the farmer to deliver the grain to its next stop, the primary elevator. Typically made out of concrete, primary elevators are large facilities capable of receiving and shipping more grain than ever before, speeding the movement of grain from farmers' bins to export destinations. Grain delivered to a primary elevator goes through a series of steps upon arrival. Accurate sampling of the shipment of grain is of prime importance. Before it is unloaded from the truck, a representative sample of the grain is taken using an automated truck probe sampler. This sample is immediately tested for moisture content, dockage, and protein content as applicable. As it proceeds into the elevator's receiving area, the loaded truck is weighed before it is emptied. The empty truck is then weighed to calculate the weight of the grain delivered. Following testing and visual inspection, the elevator operator assigns the grain a grade, which, together with the weight, is used to determine the initial cash payment for the farmer. Primary elevators can store between 8,000 and 42,000 tons of grain. Because of the high volume of grain moving through primary elevators, they are expected to turn over their inventory of grain stocks about 6 times a year. The amount and type of grain stored at any given time depends on market demand, railcar availability, and shipping schedules. Grain is stored in bins in bulk lots. Elevator staff are able to blend grain of various grades, protein content, and moisture content during shipping, or when grain is transferred from bin to improve its grade. While grain is in storage, it is regularly examined by elevator staff to ensure quality is maintained. Many primary elevators have significant grain cleaning capabilities, allowing grain in the facilities to be cleaned to export standards. Cleaning grain consists of removing dockage, which is separable foreign material, such as weed seeds, other grains, straw, and chaff. As nearly all grain is moved by rail, most primary elevators are located along rail lines. Empty rail cars are delivered to elevators based on shipping orders for cereal grains, oilseeds, and special crops. The largest primary elevators are able to load up to 112 cars in less than 10 hours. The average rail car holds about 90 tons of wheat. The grain is weighed and sampled during the loading process. Each car is given a tag bearing information on the type, weight, and grade of grain contained in the car. Grain being shipped directly to the United States or to Mexico is tested by Canadian Grain Commission inspectors at the elevator. The grain is given an official grade, and a certificate final equivalent report is issued stating the quality of the shipment. For grain destined for overseas export, however, the next stop is the terminal elevator. Terminal elevators are the link between land and water. Their functions include receiving, weighing, grading, cleaning, and storing the grain in readiness for shipment via lake or ocean-going vessels. Terminal elevator storage capacity ranges from about 100,000 to 300,000 tons, more than 5 times larger than the biggest concrete primary elevator. They can handle grain unloaded from between 100 and 200 rail cars per day. Rail cars are received in the terminal's unloading facility, which is covered by a shed to protect the grain from poor weather conditions. The grain is discharged onto a conveyor belt for transport to the terminal's workhouse, where it will be elevated and officially weighed by Canadian Grain Commission staff. Grain which has not yet been cleaned to export standards at the primary elevator will be cleaned in the workhouse. An automatic sampling system, approved by the Canadian Grain Commission, obtains a representative sample of the grain. This sample is further divided, and equal portions are sent to the Canadian Grain Commission's inspection office and to the terminal elevator's inspection office. Canadian Grain Commission inspectors will use the sample to determine an official grade and protein content, if applicable, for grain that was not inspected by the Canadian Grain Commission at the primary elevator. The sample sent to the terminal company's office is used to determine handling and storage requirements. Once the grain is weighed and graded, it is moved into storage. Terminal storage bins can range in size from 2,000 to 3,500 tons. Similar to primary elevators, grain is not stored for long periods of time at terminal elevators, with stocks turned over at least 15 times a year. Computers in the terminal elevator control room track the movement of grain within the elevator. Processing and shipping is also controlled from this room. To ensure that order specifications are met, grain may be mixed or blended in the terminal as permitted by the Canadian Grain Commission. When the grain leaves the elevator for loading onto a ship, a representative sample, obtained by an approved automatic sampling system, is taken near the vessel. Canadian Grain Commission inspectors and weighers monitor the entire loading of the vessel. The Commission then issues a certificate final, stating the official weight and grade of the shipment. If either the Canadian Grain Commission or the Terminal Elevator Company conclude that the grade being loaded does not meet order specifications, the shipping process will be stopped. To verify shipments have met certificate final grade specifications at the time of delivery, the Commission retains a composite sample of each shipment for 6 months. In Canada, grain is exported from terminal elevators in Prince Rupert and Vancouver, British Columbia, from Thunder Bay, Ontario, and from the Port of Churchill in northern Manitoba. The Port of Vancouver is Canada's largest port and is the principal gateway to Pacific Rim countries, as well as many other overseas destinations. The port's terminal elevator shipping galleries, which extend into deep water, enable vessels with deep draft to berth for loading. The port operates year-round. The Port of Prince Rupert is located 700 kilometers north of Vancouver. Its features include the deepest harbor in North America. Grain carriers have year-round access to the port. Exports from the Prince Rupert Grain Terminal are principally destined for Asia. Grain shipments leaving ports in eastern Canada originate at the terminal elevators in Thunder Bay, Ontario. Thunder Bay is more than 3,000 kilometers from the Atlantic Ocean. However, an elaborate system of canals along the Great Lakes Seaway system make it possible to move grain by water from the interior of Canada. Ships known as lakers are commonly used to carry commodities through the 5 bodies of water known as the Great Lakes. They move grain from the terminal elevators in Thunder Bay to transfer elevators located along the Great Lakes and Atlantic coast, where the grain will be reloaded onto ocean vessels for overseas shipment. Shipping season at the Port of Thunder Bay and the Great Lakes Seaway system usually runs from the end of March through to late December. In Manitoba, the Port of Churchill brings Atlantic Ocean trade to the doorstep of Western Canada. Located on the Hudson Bay coast, Churchill is closer to 25% of Canada's western grain production than other ports. Its location is ideal for shipments to Europe, Africa, Latin America, and the Middle East. Due to its northern location, the port is typically available for shipping and receiving ocean vessels from July until early November. With the loading of vessels at the terminal elevators, the movement of grain from farm to port is complete. It's a journey that will be repeated thousands of times each year as Canadian crops enter world markets. In an independent survey of grain buyers from around the world, Canada was rated the best among major grain exporting nations in product quality, consistency, and after-sales service. To continue meeting the demands of a dynamic marketplace, Canada's handling and transportation industry is evolving to provide producers and customers with the most efficient and effective system possible to move grain. At the same time, future plans to introduce enhanced quality testing, including the use of instrumental-based procedures, will ensure Canada maintains its quality advantage in domestic and export markets. These efforts will further strengthen Canada's position as a trusted and respected provider of superior quality crops to countries around the world.